Um, um, Usually, how I pick these songs, I just kind of when I do my worship, when I not my worship, I'm sorry, when I read the book and I do my fellowship with God, I usually have like music or worship music playing in the background. I have like this really like long playlist, and usually um, there's like a song that always stands out to me, like for a specific topic that just gets me like in the feelings, and I like just start to cry. So usually like that's kind of like my way of God like telling me like this is the song um, that will go tie in with what we're talking about. So to kind of recap what we've been talking about the last 2, 3 weeks. The first week we talked about rejecting carnal weapons, which is basically ignoring our natural instincts to react to something bad happening to us. Like if someone were to yell at me, like my natural instinct would probably be to like not my like someone would be like to fight back or to get quote unquote like ghetto with them. So it's like rejecting that and being um, kind of thinking like what would Jesus do and kind of follow the fruits of the spirit with that. And last week we actually talked about the vindictive attitude, which is staying a victim and basically always out to seek revenge in that sense. And we'll talk about the takeaways. And then this week we're going to be talking about forgiving. And this is when I first got this topic, it was a little funny because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like whenever we do like the Thanksgiving potluck or the Christmas party, usually like we bring a word before. And for the Christmas one, I was actually supposed to bring the word before it got canceled, and I actually wanted to talk about forgiving because I thought that was like something in my heart that I really wanted to share with people, versus because of my own personal experience. So I thought it was like obvious, like a sign from God that this was something that I was meant to share with you guys. Um, so first, I want to read Philippians 3:13, which reads, "I focus on this one thing, forgetting the past, looking forward to what lies ahead," which is in Philippians 3:13, which kind of goes into we can't move forward without letting go with what has been done to us. And the thing that I kind of think of is the movie that we played, The Pilgrim's Progress. That movie was a huge blessing. If you guys haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend. I recommend it to a lot of my people trying to explain the word, because there's like a scene when the main guy, he's trying to go up a mountain, but he can't because he's carrying like a really huge boulder on his back, and the boulder is quote unquote like his burdens. So that's kind of like how I see it. Like he wasn't able to I don't know if the word is like ascend the mountain, like go all the way up until he let go of what he was carrying. So that's kind of like how I see it. And going into that, we're going to talk about a couple benefits of forgiving, which is God forgives us if we forgive. And we can find that in Mark 11:25, which reads, "But when you are praying, first forgive anyone you are holding a grudge against, so that your Father in heaven will forgive your sins too." Kind of going into the whole thing, how can we expect God to forgive us for our sins if we're not willing to forgive someone in that sense? And another huge benefit would be that it improves your emotional and physical health. This kind of ties into carrying on to your anxiety. I can testify to this one too, because everything that I was built holding on to like for years, my anxiety got like really bad, which then like turns into it can affect your health system, your physical health later on in the future because of what it does to your body. And sometimes people also afflict self-harm. A lot of people cut themselves. They just want to kill themselves because of everything that they're holding. And it's just better to forgive the person and let go and turn it over to God so that you don't have to get to that point. And we're going to be the Mythbusters today. So there's 3 myths that are talked about, or generally talked about when you forgive someone. And the first one is going to be you can pull it off on your own strength, as in you can forgive someone by yourself, which is clearly isn't true, because obviously if that was the case, then this world wouldn't be as corrupt as it is. Everyone would be happy and, well, live like how God would want us to. And something to think about too is like no one goes into a war by themselves. Everyone has an army with them, and most of the time, like we can see it even in like superhero movies or like princess movies. They always have a sidekick. No one does anything by themselves, sorry. So that's something to think about. And also once again going into like the whole Pilgrim's Progress is we need God on our side as well, because once we turn it over to God, everything will go good in our lives. Just like how Jason preached on Friday, that if God's not guiding us, then everything goes completely wrong. And so to go into the second point, which is that we have to resume the relationship with the offender. There's like not two types of forgiveness, but two different scenarios. Like let's say like Tracy and I had got into like an argument, but the argument's like over something dumb. Like I'm not gonna end or cut off our relationship over it when I know that we can resolve it and move on from it and just grow together as like our relationship. And there's a difference between going into like a relationship with someone who's very toxic, and I know they're manipulative, and I keep thinking to myself, oh, they're gonna change. Then I'm just putting myself in a position to be self-sabotaged as well. And then I'm just gonna go back to square one of being hurt by the person. So also something to remember is that when you forgive the person, it does not mean that it's okay with what was done to you. Forgiving the person is for yourself. You have to put like your mental and your physical self first. I'm not gonna put myself in a position, like let's say in a toxic relationship, let's say like the guy is physically abusing me. I'm not gonna forgive the person just to go back to that relationship. I'm forgiving the person to move on and do better for myself. So the third one is forgive and forget. I feel like this is said a lot, and I personally used to say it a lot too before reading about this and reading the word about this as well. There's like no way we can ever forget something as much as we want to. I feel like it happens a lot. People say it a lot in relationships, like, oh, if you're gonna forgive them for it, like don't bring it up, just forget it. And I feel like that's something that isn't true, and that does need to be talked about, because there's like no way that a memory can just be erased from our minds. Like the only person who has like power for that is God, and there's like no point for us to like pretend that it didn't happen. And there's this quote that was like said in the book, and I wanted to share it with you guys because it stood out to me, and it reads, God will take the sting out and the memory of the pain as well as the desire to avenge. Basically, what it's saying is that even though we can't erase the memory of what had happened to us, but God can also erase the pain that we were feeling going through it, and also dealing with it, and also of wanting to get revenge on that person. And I can personally testify to that part, because honestly, like the pain that I was feeling from this person, I don't feel it. Like I can't remember like what I was feeling in that moment. Like once again, like going to therapy and talking about it, like they will ask me like, oh, like what do you remember? It's trying to remember it caused me like more anxiety to talk about it, but I honestly like can't feel the pain about it anymore. Ever since I turned it to God, it's because I just kind of I just remember I overcame it, so I don't want to go back to it, and that's something that I kind of like have with God too. It's like I don't forget that it happened, but sorry. It's okay. Like it happened, and it sucks that it happened, but it sucks that it happened, but I can't blame God for man's actions. And we do live in a corrupt world where man has the choice of free will, and which does really suck. But I overcame it, I battled it, and I fully turned it over to God. I was able to forgive the person for what they did to me. I haven't done it like face to face, but I turned it over to God, and ever since then, I haven't been really able to feel like all the depression and the pain that I was going through then. So now, I'm gonna talk about getting through it. So I first want to talk about the story of what's happening in Acts 27, and the main thing is Paul sailing to Rome. Paul, he's traveling to Rome as a prisoner to face trial with Caesar. And so to give some little context of what's happening, there's the ship owner, the sergeant who's in charge of everything, and then there's like the commander of just the prisoners. So the commander of just the prisoner had taken favor with Paul, like he really liked him, so they went to Crete, like before stopping to Rome, and he told Paul, like, oh, you can say goodbye to your friends here. And before they had gotten on the boat, like Paul kind of recognized that there was going to be a storm. And he told them, like, hey, maybe we shouldn't sail out because we're going to come across a storm. And, of course, they didn't listen to him because they had precious cargo on the ship, and also they wanted to get the prisoners, like, quickly to Rome. So it was just they kind of wanted to put, like, their own stuff over the storm. So they thought that they would be able to make it, which isn't what happened, of course. So the storm itself lasted 14 days, and within those 14 days, like the shipmen were tossing over the cargo. So the main thing that they wanted to get across to Rome, they ended up tossing it out, and that was like one of the first things to be tossed out. And Paul had gave them the word that God told Paul that he's going to face trial against Caesar, so that means they are going to make it. And with that, Paul also told them, like, no, nothing is going to happen to any of us. Like, we're all going to make it. So that kind of gave them, like, a little reassurance of what was going to happen. And the last day, they honestly didn't even recognize the shore. They didn't recognize, like, the beach shore, so it kind of, like, took them a minute. And before they had got to shore, there was, like a reef, like, farther out, and they had crashed into it. So the ship was completely destroyed. And basically the crewmen were like, oh, we're going to have to kill all the prisoners because once they get to the beach, they're going to escape. But the commander, he was like, since he really liked Paul, he knew that it included Paul. He was like, no, let's not kill them. Like, we'll be fine. Like, whoever can swim, swim to shore. And who can't swim, just grab onto debris. So the reason that I talked about this story is that God will get us through anything, but what we're carrying won't make it. Just as the story, there was 276 people on that boat, and every single person made it to shore unharmed. Their cargo that they were so possessive over that they wanted to make sure they got it, it never made it. The boat itself never made it. It made it to shore. So just in that same way, like, we will be able to get through what we're going through, but all this burden and all this, like, pain that we're feeling and all the hurt, like, it won't make it through it. And something to also remember is that it may be painful, but it's not life-threatening what we're going through. And we have to stop relying on the world to help heal us, and we have to start relying on God. To kind of go into, like, the whole, like, world helping us to heal, it goes with, it pops up a lot on my For You page on TikTok. It's tarot cards, I don't know. Tarot cards where, like, you know, like, oh, this card means, like, good fortune or good health is coming. And I don't know, sometimes I sit there and I'm like, this is funny. And, like, I just kind of, like, go through it. And it's, like, a lot of people actually, like, believe that stuff. Like, it will say, like, oh, what you're going through will end very soon, don't worry. Or, like, the right person for you is coming. And a lot of people believe in crystals as well. And people do rely on stuff like that. And it's, like, the video that we watched, the one that we had just watched. I can't remember the name of it. I don't know, it was talking about the wedding, the Jewish wedding. Yeah, Before the Raft. That movie, the guy, he specifically said, I don't understand how people can believe in astrology and rocks, but they don't believe in God. And that made me laugh so hard because it's so true. Like, people depend on cards that are chosen, like, randomly, and as well as, like, crystals just to give you, like, good fortune, to help you cleanse yourself. But they can't return to God and ask God to help cleanse themselves, or, like, ask God for, like, a new beginning. And that's, like, really sad that people do turn to that. So some takeaways for today specifically is to forgive someone is also means to love someone, and to love people in general. Like, kind of like the saying, like, if you don't love yourself, like, how are you going to love someone else? This goes hand in hand with that. As well as, to be one with God, action needs to be taken, which also means to forgive someone, which I talked about in my preaching, how I wasn't able to grow more with God until I was able to turn it over to God. Until then, I can say I was one with God. And just as easy it is to let hatred and revenge into our heart, we need to let God's love and peace into our heart as easily as well. Like, in the picture, the guy who was literally, like, stabbed with arrows in the back, he's, like, hugging the person who did it to him. And kind of most importantly as well is that we have to be willing to let it go. We have to release ourselves and, of course, live on. I wanted to share this verse with you. This is one of my personal, I have it, like, marked on my Bible, like, read when you're sad. It's like the whole chapter of John 16, and this is Jesus talking to the disciples, and it reads, I have told you all this so that you may have peace in me. Here on earth you will have many trials and sorrows, but take heart because I overcame the world. And it's true, because we do live in a really corrupt world. We do sadly face a lot of stuff because everyone has, like, the choice of free will, and God doesn't, sadly, like, we're not like robots that we all can live as God wants us to. And we will face difficult times, but that's why we're all here to help each other out. Maybe, like, I can help you guys out with something specifically that no one else has gone through. Like, we're all here. There's a bunch of us here to talk to each other as well as pastors are always available. And, like, most importantly, like, God is always there. And that's, like, the most important thing. Thank you. I don't know.